Three things happened when the sky broke. Every psychic on the planet screamed. Every daemon in the sector went silent. And something crawled out of the crater. Something that had killed gods before. This is what happened next. Reality doesn't tear gently. It screams. The wound opened above Carthago's prime at 0347 hours, local time. A jagged scar of crimson light that split the darkness like a blade through silk. For 3 heartbeats, the universe held its breath. Then the screaming started. On the northern continent, in the Spire of Whispers, 27 astropaths collapsed simultaneously. Blood ran from their eyes, their ears, their mouths. They clawed at their faces, trying to shut out the sound that wasn't sound, the feeling of reality bending backward on itself. One of them, a woman named Kara, managed to speak before her mind shattered. "A ghost," she whispered. "A ghost made of war." Then silence. In the Hive Eidolon Command Center, Sergeant Ardent Vale was 3 minutes from the end of his shift. He'd served the Emperor for 22 years. Seen orc invasions, Tyranid scouts, even a chaos cult uprising that left half the lower hive in ashes. He thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. The first alarm died mid-wail, just stopped. Like someone had reached inside the machine and crushed its throat. Vale looked up from his data slate. Every screen in the command center had gone white. Not static, not error messages, just pure, blinding white, like staring into a sun that had forgotten how to burn. "Emperor preserve us," someone whispered behind him. Vale moved to the observation window. The armored glass was 3 inches thick, rated to withstand orbital bombardment. His hands left sweat marks on its surface. The sky was folding. That's the only word for it. The air itself rippling inward, compressing toward a single point high above the desert wastes. Colors that had no name flickered at the edges, shades between crimson and gold, between black and light. Something was pushing through. "Sir?" His second, a young woman named Jest, stepped up beside him. Her voice shook. "What are we looking at?" Vale didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the thing, whatever it was, had started to fall. It wasn't falling like debris, wasn't tumbling or spinning out of control. It fell like a weapon, like something thrown by a hand too large to see. The corona of fire around it shifted through colors the human eye was never designed to process. Vale's vision blurred. His head pounded. Somewhere behind him, Jest was vomiting. "Sound the evacuation," he managed. His voice came out strangled. "Get everyone to the lower levels. Now!" "Sir, the range! Now!" The object struck the desert 40 kilometers east of the hive. For one impossible moment, gravity forgot how to work. Vale felt his stomach lurch upward, felt his boots leave the floor. Around him, equipment floated. People hung suspended in midair like puppets, with cut strings. Then gravity remembered, and the shockwave hit. The observation window cracked. Not shattered. The glass was too strong for that. But a spiderweb of fractures spread across its surface. The entire command tower swayed. Alarms that had gone silent suddenly screamed back to life. Vale grabbed the console to steady himself. On the few screens that still worked, he could see the readings. Seismic activity. Off the scale. Thermal signature. Comparable to a plasma reactor going critical. Radiation. None. Warp contamination. None. That last one made no sense. Nothing fell from the warp without leaving a psychic stain. Nothing. "Get me visual," Vale barked. "Any camera still online? I want eyes on that crater." It took 3 tries. Most of the systems were fried. Their machine spirits fled into static. But finally, one servo skull responded. Its piked feed flickered onto the main display. The crater was 3 kilometers wide. The sand had turned to glass, Black glass that reflected nothing, absorbed everything. Steam rose in pillars that reached toward the broken sky. At the center, something moved. "Zoom in," Vale whispered. The image sharpened, enhanced, focused. A figure knelt in the crater. Massive, easily 3 meters tall, maybe more. Armor of burned bronze, so scarred it looked like it had been through 1,000 wars. Chains hung from its wrists, dragging across the glassed sand. Steam rose from its shoulders, like smoke from a forge. It lifted its head. Vale's blood turned to ice. The face, what he could see of it, was ash pale. Scars crisscrossed every inch of visible skin. A red stripe ran down one side, glowing faintly in the heat. But it was the eyes that made Vale's hand move toward his sidearm without thinking. They burned, not with fire, with something older. The figure stood. Every screen in the command center flickered, went dark, came back online showing nothing but static. Vale stood there, hand on his weapon, staring at the dead screens. His comm bead crackled. The voice that came through belonged to Commander Thales, the Hive's senior officer. "Sergeant Vale, tell me you saw that." "Yes, sir." "What is it?" Vale opened his mouth, closed it. What words existed for what he'd just witnessed? "I don't know, sir. But it's walking, and it's heading toward us. Silence on the line. Then, alert the Inquisition. Tell them we have a situation." The comm clicked off. Vale looked at Jest. She'd wiped her mouth, pulled herself together. Good soldier. "What do we do?" she asked. Vale stared at the static-filled screens. Somewhere out there, in the desert, something that fell from a torn sky was walking toward their home. Walking with purpose. Walking with chains that dragged sparks from the ground. He'd served the Emperor for 22 years. He had a feeling that wasn't going to be enough. "We pray," he said quietly, "and we prepare for the worst." In orbit, aboard the inquisitorial cruiser, Sol Regnum, Inquisitor Lyra Voss stood before a wall of data streams. Her half-mask, beaten bronze covering the left side of her face, caught the light from a dozen screens. She'd felt it. The moment reality tore. Every soul with even a hint of psychic sensitivity had felt it. A pressure against the inside of the skull, like the universe trying to push its way into your mind. Now she watched the feeds die one by one, watched the static consume the images. "Magos," she said, not looking away from the screens. Analysis. The tech priest beside her, a hunched figure more machine than man, tilted his head. Gears whirred in his neck. "No warp signature, Inquisitor. No demonic taint. No psychic resonance. The object reads as material. But the energy output is impossible. No known technology produces such results." Voss's fingers tightened on her staff. The aquila at its head, a two-headed eagle of gold and flame, flickered in response to her tension. "Life signs?" 1. Humanoid. Impossibly dense. The readings suggest the equivalent mass of a dreadnought, compressed into a human-sized frame. Voss finally turned to look at him. "Explain." "I cannot, Inquisitor. The data is contradictory. The object should not exist. Yet it does. And it is moving." On the screens, one final camera managed to capture an image before it died. The figure, walking across the glassed desert. Each step left a crater. Smoke trailed behind it like a funeral shroud. Voss made her decision. "Prepare my shuttle. Full security detail." Gray Knights, the Magos' optical sensors focused on her. "You intend to make contact." "If the Emperor has sent us a saint," Voss said quietly, "we will name it and honor it." She paused, her visible eye hard as steel. "If not, we burn it." Far below, the figure continued to walk. Chains dragging, eyes burning. And in the warp, In that terrible space between reality and madness, 4 powers stirred. Khorne, the blood god, leaned forward on his throne of skulls. His laughter was the sound of a billion throats screaming. "A warrior," he rumbled. "After so long, after so much silence, a true warrior comes." Tzeentch, the architect of fate, watched through 1,000 eyes. Plans shifted. Possibilities bloomed like flowers made of knives. "Change," it whispered. "Such delicious change." Nurgle, grandfather of plagues, smiled his gentle, rotting smile. "All things decay," he said to no one. "Even gods, even warriors. In time he will understand." And Slaanesh, beautiful, terrible Slaanesh, sang a single note that made reality shiver. "Desire," the Dark Prince breathed. "What does a god-killer desire?" "I must know. I will know." They watched. They waited. They planned. Something new had entered their garden. Something that smelled of ash and old blood. Something that carried the weight of dead pantheons on its shoulders. They wanted it. The figure walked on, unaware or uncaring of the attention. Its name was Kratos. And this galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The pilgrimage had been walking for 6 days. 200 souls, maybe more. Men and women from the Factorum districts, children who'd never seen sunlight, veterans with augmetic limbs that clicked and whirred with each step. They carried relics wrapped in blessed cloth, fragments of saints, pieces of ancient machinery, vials of water from Terra itself. They were walking to the shrine of the Emperor's Grace, a cathedral carved into the mountains north of Hive Eidolon. A journey of faith, a journey of hope. They didn't know they were walking into history. At the head of the procession, Father Matthias held his censer high. The incense smoke rose into the morning air, carrying prayers toward the golden throne light years away. He was old, 73 standard years, and his knees hurt with every step. But pain was prayer. Suffering was devotion. He'd led this pilgrimage for 40 years. This would be his last. He didn't know how right he was. "Father," said a voice beside him. Sister Kala, one of the younger pilgrims. Her face was marked with the scars of piety, ritual cuts that formed the aquila across her forehead. "The sky last night, did you see it?" Matthias had seen it. The red light, the tearing. Even from this distance, even without psychic sight, he'd felt something change. "A sign," he said simply. "The Emperor speaks to us in many ways." "But what does it mean?" "Faith, child. Faith means we trust even when we don't understand." She nodded, but he saw doubt in her eyes. Good. Doubt made faith stronger. Doubt tested. Doubt refined. They crested a rise in the road. Below them, the approach to Hive Eidolon's eastern gate spread out like a scar across the desert. The gate itself was massive, 30 meters high, carved with the image of the Emperor Ascendant. His hands were raised in benediction. His face was stern but loving. Holy. Matthias stopped. The pilgrims behind him stopped, because someone was standing in front of the gate. At first, Matthias thought it was a statue, some new monument he hadn't heard about. The figure was too still to be alive, too perfect in its terrible symmetry. Then it moved. Not much, just a slight shift of weight. The chains at its wrists clinked softly, the sound carrying across the distance with unnatural clarity. "Emperor preserve us," Matthias whispered. The figure was massive, easily 3 meters tall, perhaps more. Its armor was bronze, burned and scarred beyond recognition. Ash-pale skin showed through gaps in the plating. And the chains. Emperor. The chains. They looked like they'd been forged in some hell he couldn't name. "Is it a space marine?" someone asked behind him. The voice was small, afraid. "No," Matthias said, because he'd seen space marines. seen the angels of death in their glory. This was something else, something older. The figure's head turned, slowly, deliberately, looking directly at the pilgrimage. Matthias felt his heart stop, start, stop again. The eyes, golden, burning. Not with madness. Matthias knew madness when he saw it. He'd blessed enough madmen before the purges. No, these eyes burned with something worse. Purpose. The figure began to walk, not toward them, toward the gate. Every step left a crack in the rockcrete. Every movement sent small tremors through the ground. Matthias found his voice. "Children! We must—" But he didn't know how to finish that sentence. Run? Hide? Pray? The figure reached the gate, stood before it, looking up at the massive sculpture of the Emperor, the God-Emperor of mankind, master of the Imperium, he who sits upon the golden throne. For a long moment, nothing happened. The pilgrims held their breath. 200 souls, suspended between fear and awe. Then the figure spoke. His voice was low, ancient. It carried across the desert like thunder that had learned patience. "You worship a corpse." The words hit like a physical blow. Matthias felt his legs go weak. Around him, gasps, cries of horror. Someone dropped their relic. It shattered on the stones, sacred water spilling into dust. Blasphemy! The shout came from behind Matthias. Brother Cale, a young priest with more zeal than sense. He pushed through the crowd, his hand already reaching for his sidearm. A stub pistol blessed by the cardinal himself. Blasphemer! Heretic! Demon! Cale's hand found his weapon, drew it, aimed. The figure turned, slowly, so slowly. And Matthias saw something that would haunt him until the day he died. He saw the figure's eyes, those burning golden eyes, look at Cale with something that wasn't anger. It was pity. The chains at the figure's wrists began to glow. Not red, not the crimson of chaos. White, pure white, like the heart of a star. Flames danced along the metal, white fire that didn't smoke, didn't consume. It simply was. The desert around them grew hot. Matthias felt sweat break across his skin. The pilgrims stepped back. Some fell to their knees, whether in prayer or terror, he couldn't tell. Kyle's hand shook. The pistol wavered. Kyle's voice cracked. The figure looked at him, just looked, and Cale's arm dropped. The white flames dimmed, flickered, faded. The figure turned away from them, away from the gate. Its head bowed slightly, as if carrying some weight none of them could see. When it spoke again, its voice was quieter, sadder. "I have killed gods." The words hung in the air like smoke. "I will not serve another." Then it walked, past them, past the pilgrimage, each step measured, each movement deliberate, the chains dragged behind it, leaving lines of scorched earth. No one moved, no one spoke. Matthias watched the figure disappear into the desert, heading east toward the wastelands where nothing lived, where nothing could live. Behind him, he heard weeping. Prayers. The sounds of faith cracking under weight it was never meant to bear. Sister Calla touched his arm. "Father." "What? What was that?" Matthias didn't answer immediately. He couldn't. Because he was remembering something from his seminary days. A forbidden text he'd glimpsed before the Inquisitors burned the library. Words from an age before the Imperium. Before Terra unified. Before humanity reached the stars. When the gods die, their killers do not rest. They wander, they wait, and they destroy everything that tries to chain them again. "Father?" He looked at her, saw the fear in her eyes, the confusion. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But we must report this. Now." "To whom?" "Good question. Who did you report a walking blasphemy to? Who had authority over something that called the Emperor a corpse and walked away alive?" "The Inquisition." Matthias said. If anyone knows what that was, it will be them. But deep in his heart, in that small space where doubt lived alongside faith, he suspected something terrible. He suspected that no one knew, that no one could know, that something had entered their galaxy that existed outside all their understanding of holy and damned. Behind them, at the gate, the carving of the Emperor looked down with stone eyes, silent, eternal, offering no answers. In the Hive Eidolon Command Center, alarms were screaming. "Sir," Jest's voice was sharp. "Movement at the eastern gate. Multiple contacts. Wait, no. One contact. One very large contact. And people. Civilians. Vale was already moving. Put it on screen." The pict feed showed the scene in grainy detail. The pilgrimage, the scattered pilgrims, and the figure walking away, heading into the wastes. "Emperor's teeth," Vale breathed. "It got past our perimeter. We didn't even see it coming." "Orders, sir?" Vale watched the figure disappear into the heat shimmer, watched the pilgrims slowly pull themselves together, like people waking from a nightmare. "Send medical teams to the gate. Those people are going to need help, and get me a direct line to the Inquisitor. Now." "What do I tell her?" Vale's jaw tightened. "Tell her the anomaly is mobile. Tell her it's encountered civilians. And tell her," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Tell her." It spoke. And what it said. Jest went pale. She'd heard it too. The VoxNet had picked up the voice. Every channel, every frequency. "You worship a corpse." "Sir, that's heresy. If we repeat that—" "I don't care." Vale's voice was hard. "She needs to know what we're dealing with." The Inquisitor asked for truth. She's going to get it. Jest nodded and moved to comply. Vale turned back to the screens. Somewhere out there, in the burning desert, a figure walked alone. Walked away from civilization, toward nothing. He'd seen war, seen orcs, seen chaos, seen things that made strong men weep, but he'd never seen anything that looked so tired, so old, so done. "What are you?" he whispered to the empty air. The screens showed nothing but sand and heat. No answer came. In orbit, Inquisitor Voss read the report 3 times. Each time, the words didn't change. "You worship a corpse. I have killed gods. I will not serve another." Her visible eye narrowed. The bronze mask covering the other half of her face seemed to glow in the dim light of her private chamber. "Magos," she said into the comm. "I want every text in our archives cross-referenced. Ancient Terra, the Age of Strife, before the unification. Look for anything, mythology, legend, heretical documents, that mentions god-killers." The tech priest's voice crackled back, confused. "Inquisitor, such beings are myth, metaphor, allegory meant to—" "I know what they're meant to be," Voss interrupted. "But I just watched something that reads as material, not demonic. Walk up to a shrine of the Emperor and call him a corpse. And then walk away alive." She paused, letting that sink in. Either we're dealing with the greatest blasphemer in Imperial history, or we're dealing with something that actually believes it has killed gods. Find me which. Find me now. At once, Inquisitor. The comm went dead. Voss stood and walked to the observation window. Below, Carthagos Prime rotated slowly. A world of hives and faith, of industry and prayer. A world that had just been touched by something impossible. She thought about the reports, the pilgrims kneeling, the priest's pistol unfired, the figure walking away. Why didn't it kill them? That was the question that bothered her most. It could have, easily. The thermal readings alone suggested it could level that entire pilgrimage with a thought. The power signature was unreal, but it walked away. "I will not serve another. Not, I serve chaos. Not, I serve the dark gods. Just refusal to serve. What kind of being refused service? Demons served. Xenos followed their instincts. Even humans served. The Emperor, the Imperium, their greed, their fear. Something. But this sounded like something that had broken every chain ever placed on it. And that terrified her more than any demon ever could. Sister Helena, Voss spoke into her personal vox. Prepare the Grey Knights. Full combat load. We're going down. Target, Inquisitor? Voss looked at the planet below. Somewhere down there, a figure walked. Alone, unchained, unbowed. A ghost, she said quietly. We're hunting a ghost made of war. And in the warp, in that space where the gods played their infinite game, Khorne stood from his throne. The movement sent shockwaves through his realm. Demons scattered, lesser beings cowered. He stared into the material realm, through the veil, at the small figure walking across a desert no one cared about. And he smiled. Not the smile of a predator seeing prey, the smile of a warrior recognizing another warrior. Brother, Khorne whispered, and his voice made reality bleed. Brother of slaughter. Brother of rage. You think you can walk away from what you are? He laughed. The sound killed 100 demons who stood too close. No one escapes the blood. Not even you. Not even a god-killer. He raised one massive hand, claws that could tear worlds extended, drew patterns in the air, blood dripped upward, defying gravity, forming symbols older than humanity. Soon, Khorne promised, soon I will call. And you will answer. Because rage is not a choice. Rage is what you are. The symbols pulsed, grew, reached toward the material realm like searching fingers. And on Carthago's prime, Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, the god-killer, the breaker of chains, stopped walking. Just for a moment. Just long enough to look at the sky. His eyes narrowed. Then he kept walking. But his hands had curled into fists, and the chains at his wrists hummed with white light. The hunt had begun. The dropships fell through the atmosphere like hammers of judgment. 3 Valkyries in tight formation, their engines screaming hymns of devotion as they punched through the cloud layer. Behind them came something heavier, a thunderhawk painted in silver and black, bearing the seal of the Ordo Malleus. Inside the lead Valkyrie, Inquisitor Lyra Voss checked her weapons for the 3rd time. Bolt, pistol, blessed by Cardinal Harkin himself. Loaded with sanctified rounds, each one inscribed with prayers of banishment. Power sword, its blade humming with barely contained energy. She'd killed 17 demons with this blade. The pommel was wrapped in the hair of saints. Psychic hood, wired directly into her nervous system, dampening the constant pressure of the warp against her mind. It itched, always itched. And her staff, the rod of conviction. Topped with the burning Aquila, it had been passed down through 7 generations of Inquisitors. It had never failed. She hoped it wouldn't start today. 2 minutes to landing zone, Inquisitor, the pilot's voice crackled through her helmet vox. Winds are stable. No hostile contacts. Yet, Voss murmured. Across from her, Captain Ral of the Grey Knights sat in perfect stillness. His Terminator armor, ancient and covered in psychic wards, made him look like a statue carved from silver and will. His force halberd rested against his shoulder, its blade occasionally flickering with blue light. He hadn't spoken since boarding. Grey Knights rarely did. But his helmet turned toward her now, the lenses glowing with psychic power. You feel it, too. His voice was a rumble, distorted through his helmet's vox. Not a question, a statement. Voss nodded. The warp is quiet. Too quiet. Not quiet, Ral corrected. Watching. That was worse. Silence meant nothing. Watching meant something was about to happen. The Valkyrie banked hard, beginning its descent. Through the small viewport, Voss could see the desert below, endless stretches of sand and rock, broken only by the distant silhouette of Hive Eidolon. And there, near the eastern gate, a smudge of movement. The pilgrimage still gathered, still trying to process what they'd seen. Circle the area, Voss ordered. I want thermal scans, auspex sweeps, everything. Find me that anomaly, the pilot acknowledged. The Valkyrie's machine spirit hummed as sensors activated, probing the desert with invisible fingers. Seconds ticked by. 10, 20, 30. Nothing. Inquisitor, the pilot said, confusion in his voice. I'm not getting anything. The target should be showing up on... Wait. Contact. Bearing 047, range 12 kilometers and increasing. Increasing? It's moving away from us. Fast. Faster than anything that size should move. Voss felt her jaw tighten. Running, or just refusing to engage? Pursuit course, she ordered. But maintain distance. Do not engage without my authorization. Acknowledged. The Valkyrie's engines whined as it changed vector. The other two craft followed, forming a loose triangle. The Thunderhawk carrying the rest of the Grey Knights stayed back. Insurance, in case this turned into a fight they couldn't win. Below, the desert blurred past. Rocks, sand, the occasional wreckage of ancient machinery half buried and forgotten. And then, visual contact, the pilot reported. Throne of Terra. Voss moved to the viewport. There, a figure walking across the sand. Not running, not hiding, just walking, as if the three armed dropships behind it were nothing more than birds. The thermal signature was impossible. It read hotter than a plasma reactor, yet the sand around it wasn't melting. The figure itself appeared as a bright white silhouette on her display. Not the red of demons, not the sickly green of Xenos corruption. White, pure white, like staring at a star. Range 7 kilometers, the pilot said, maintaining pursuit. Inquisitor, we could... No, Voss interrupted. We observe. Record everything. If it shows hostile intent, Captain Rahl will handle it. The Grey Knight's helmet tilted slightly. Acknowledgement. The Valkyrie dropped lower, coming to a hover 400 meters above and behind the target. Close enough to see details, far enough to react if things went wrong. Voss activated her magnoculars, bringing the image into sharp focus. Emperor preserve her. The figure was exactly as the reports described. Massive. Armored in bronze that looked older than the Imperium itself. Chains hanging from its wrists, dragging through the sand. But what the reports hadn't captured, couldn't capture, was the weight it carried. Not physical weight. Something else. The way it moved, the way each step seemed to cost more than it should, the way its head stayed slightly bowed, as if looking at something only it could see. This wasn't the walk of a warrior going to battle. This was the walk of a man going to a grave. Auspex reading, Voss said, not taking her eyes off the figure. Any warp distortion? Negative, Inquisitor. No warp presence at all. It's reading as entirely material. But the power output... What about it? The tech priest aboard, Magos Yult, leaned forward, his mechadendrites twitching with agitation. Inquisitor, the energy contained in that form. If it were to be released suddenly, the blast radius would level everything within 50 kilometers. Voss felt cold. You're saying it's a bomb? No, I'm saying it's worse. It's not containing energy. It is energy. Compressed, controlled, walking. The Magos paused. This should not be possible. Captain Rahl stood. The movement made the Valkyrie rock slightly. Terminator armor was heavy. I will speak to it, he said. Captain, if words fail, my brothers will know. They will finish what I start. His helmet turned toward her. This is our purpose, Inquisitor, to face what others cannot. Voss wanted to argue, wanted to say they needed more information, more backup, more everything. But he was right. If this thing was hostile, better to learn now than after it reached a population center. "Emperor, guide your hand," she said quietly. Roll nodded, moved to the Valkyrie's rear door. It opened with a hiss of hydraulics. Wind screamed into the cabin, carrying sand and heat. He stepped to the edge, looked down at the desert 400 meters below, and jumped. No hesitation. No fear. Just faith and duty, and the absolute certainty that he was doing the Emperor's work. His armor screamed as he fell. Personal thrusters fired, slowing his descent. He hit the sand hard enough to crack stone, landing in a three-point stance that sent up a cloud of dust. When he rose, his halberd was in his hands. The blade ignited with blue psychic fire. Ahead, the figure had stopped. Voss held her breath. The figure turned, slowly, chains scraping across sand. When it faced Ral fully, she could see its eyes even from this distance. Gold. Burning. Ancient. Ral's voice boomed across the desert, amplified by his armor's vox casters. Each word carried the weight of 10,000 years of duty. "By the authority of the God Emperor of mankind, Master of Terra, and Lord of the Imperium, I command you to identify yourself and state your purpose on this world." His psychic presence flared, a corona of blue light around him, pushing back against reality itself. The sand around his feet turned to glass. The figure didn't respond, didn't move, just looked at him with those terrible, tired eyes. Roll took a step forward. His halberd hummed. "I will not ask again. Identify yourself, or be destroyed in his name." The figure's head tilted slightly, as if considering, as if weighing options. Then it spoke. Its voice was low, but it carried across the desert, up to the Valkyrie, into Voss's ears, and straight into her bones. "I am no one's." 3 words, that's all. But they resonated with something that made Voss's psychic hood spark, made the Grey Knight's armor flicker, made the very air between them seem to crack. The chains at the figure's wrists began to glow, not red, white. That same impossible white that defied all their sensors. Flames danced along the metal, white fire that didn't smoke, didn't burn, just existed in defiance of every natural law. Ral shifted his stance, combat ready. His psychic aura intensified, pushing harder. The sand around him was melting now, turning to glass that reflected nothing. "Then you are heresy," Ral said, "and heresy must burn." He moved. Grey Knights were fast, impossibly fast. Terminator armor shouldn't be able to move like that, but psychic enhancement and centuries of training made them blur across the distance. His halberd swung in a perfect arc, aimed at the figure's neck. The blade left a trail of blue fire in the air, enough force to decapitate a greater demon. The figure moved faster. One hand came up, caught the halberd's shaft, just caught it. Mid-swing, like catching a thrown ball. The impact sent out a shockwave that rattled Voss's teeth even 400 meters away. The sand exploded outward in a perfect circle. The sound was like reality cracking. Ral pulled, put all the strength of his armor, all his psychic will, into tearing his weapon free. It didn't budge. The figure looked at the halberd, at the blue flames dancing along its blade, then at Roll. And Voss saw something in those golden eyes that made her blood run cold. Not anger, not bloodlust, not the madness of chaos. Recognition. As if the figure was looking at something it had seen before. Something it had fought before. Something it knew how to kill. "Brother," the figure said quietly. "Step back." Ral didn't step back. He drove his other fist toward the figure's face, a punch backed by servo motors and psychic fury. The figure's other hand came up, caught the fist, held it. For a moment, they were frozen. Gray Knight and Anomaly, locked together in perfect stillness. Then the white flame spread, crawled along the halberd's shaft, along Ral's arm, not burning, not consuming, just touching. Ral's psychic aura flickered, wavered. The blue light around him dimmed. Impossible, Ral breathed. You're not of the warp. You're not even. The figure released him, stepped back. The white flames vanished. Ral stumbled, caught himself. His halberd was intact, but the blade's glow had dimmed, the psychic charge nearly depleted. You could have killed me, Ral said. Not an accusation, a statement. Confusion in his voice. Why didn't you? The figure turned away, started walking again. East. Always east. Toward the wastes where nothing lived. Over its shoulder, it said one thing. I have killed enough brothers. Then it was gone. Walking. The chains dragging, leaving scorched earth in its wake. Ral stood there, one of the Emperor's finest warriors. A gray knight who had banished demons that made worlds scream. A man who knew no fear. He stood there and watched the figure walk away. And he let it go. In the Valkyrie, Voss realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly. Magos, she said, her voice tight. Did you record that? Every second, Inquisitor. Though I do not understand what I recorded. Join the club, Voss muttered. She activated her Vox. Captain, return to the transport. We're not engaging further. Silence. Then, acknowledged. Ral's jump pack fired. He rose into the air, landing back in the Valkyrie with a thud that made the deck groan. His armor was scorched where the white fire had touched, not damaged, but marked. Changed. He said nothing as the door closed, just stood there, staring at his hands. Captain? Voss prompted. It wasn't warp energy, Ral said quietly. It wasn't any energy I've ever encountered. It was pure, refined, as if someone had taken the concept of force and removed everything that made it dangerous. That makes no sense. I know. Ral looked at her. Through his helmet she could see his eyes, wide with something that might have been wonder or might have been horror. I tried to push with my mind, to read it, to understand. And it pushed back, not with malice, not with power, just pushed back, like a wall. But the wall was alive, aware, and very, very old. He paused. Inquisitor, I have fought demons for 2 centuries. I have looked into the warp and seen things that would shatter mortal minds. But this? What? This felt like standing in front of a god. Voss felt her hands tighten on her staff. Gods don't exist, Captain. Not the way you mean. Then what do you call something that could kill me without effort and chose not to? What do you call something that bears no taint of chaos, no mark of Xenos, but reads as a threat level comparable to a greater demon? Voss had no answer. Below, the figure continued to walk, smaller now, distant, but still visible as a white dot on her sensors, walking away from civilization, away from humanity, away from everything. What are you? She whispered. The desert offered no answer. Only wind. Only sand. Only the echo of chains dragging across glass. Far above, aboard the Sol Regnum, the rest of Voss's staff watched the feeds in silence. In the Strategium, a dozen tech priests analyzed the data, ran calculations, cross-referenced every known threat, found nothing that matched. In the Librarium, servitors pulled ancient texts, scrolls sealed for millennia, forbidden knowledge locked away for good reason. They found references, fragments, stories from before the Age of Strife, myths about warriors who killed their own gods, legends about chains that bound not the body, but the soul. One text, burned almost to ash, preserved behind stasis fields, bore a name: Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, the God Killer. The text was from ancient Terra, from before the unification, from a time when humanity worshipped many gods, not one. The text said he had killed them all. The text said he had burned Olympus to ash. The text said he had broken the cycle of patricide that had ruled creation since time began. And then he had disappeared. The historian servitor that retrieved the text flagged it for inquisitorial review. But it also noted something else. Something that made its limited artificial intelligence hesitate before submitting the report. Every copy of this text that had ever existed had been systematically destroyed. Every single one. By order of the Emperor himself. During the Unification Wars, before the Imperium, before the legions, before everything. The servitor submitted the report. And somewhere in the deepest vaults of Terra, where secrets older than stars slept in darkness, an alert triggered. Someone very powerful was about to learn that a ghost from humanity's past had returned, and they were going to have to decide what to do about it. On the desert floor, Kratos walked. He felt the eyes on him, the machines in the sky, the warriors who thought themselves holy, the weight of judgment pressing down like chains he'd already broken 1,000 times. He didn't care. He'd walked away from Olympus, from Sparta, from everything he'd ever known or loved or destroyed. He would walk away from this too. But something nagged at him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in how long? Centuries? Millennia? The warrior in silver armor, the one with the glowing weapon, the one who had shown no fear. He'd fought warriors like that before, warriors who believed their cause was righteous, warriors who thought faith could overcome anything. He'd killed warriors like that before, but he'd also been one. Once. Long ago. Before the gods had used him, before the rage, before everything burned. The chains at his wrists hummed, a warning, a reminder. Something was coming, something old and familiar and hungry. He could feel it in the warp, that space between spaces where the gods of this galaxy played their games. They'd noticed him, and soon they would call. Let them, he thought, let them come. I've killed gods before. I will do it again if I must. But his hands curled into fists, and deep inside, in that place where hope had died long ago, he whispered a name. Atreus. The desert wind swallowed the word, carried it away to nowhere. He kept walking. The warp is not a place, not truly. It is an emotion given form, a thought made real. The collective unconscious of every living soul screaming into the void, and the void screaming back. It is beautiful. It is terrible. It is always hungry. And right now, it was confused. In the realm of Khorne, where brass mountains rose from seas of blood and the sky rained skulls, the blood god sat upon his throne and stared into the materium. He'd been staring for hours, for days. Time meant nothing here. What mattered was the warrior, the ghost, the man who smelled of old wars and broken chains. Khorne had seen many warriors in his eternal existence, seen space marines fall to rage and become his champions, seen mortals drown in bloodlust until they were nothing but meat puppets dancing to his will, seen entire civilizations tear themselves apart in his name. But this was different. Skull-taker, Khorne rumbled. From the shadows of the throne room, a figure emerged, 8 feet tall, armored in the flayed skin of 1,000 champions. Its face was a brass mask, carved into an eternal grin. In its hands, a blade that had tasted the blood of saints and demons alike. Skull-taker, greater demon of Khorne, herald of the blood god, knelt. My lord, Khorne pointed one massive claw at the viewing pool, a basin filled with blood that showed the material universe. In the center of the pool, a tiny figure walked across a desert world. What do you see? Skull-taker leaned closer, Its eyes, 8 of them, arranged in a circle around its mask, focused on the image. For a long moment it said nothing. Then, I see a warrior, my lord. A mortal. Strong, yes. Powerful, yes. But mortal. Look closer. Skulltaker looked, really looked, and its posture changed, straightened. The demon's aura, usually a corona of rage and bloodlust, flickered. Dimmed. No, that cannot be. The scent. The weight. My lord, this is— Yes, Khorne interrupted. This is a god-slayer. Not one who killed a god. One who killed his gods. Plural. His entire pantheon, dead by his hands. Skulltaker pulled back as if burned. How is this possible? Gods cannot die. Not truly. We endure. We exist beyond— These gods died. Khorne's voice was heavy, not with sadness. The blood god knew no sadness, but with something else. Recognition. Respect. They died because they were weak. Complacent. They used mortals as toys, and one mortal decided to break his strings. The demon turned its mask toward Khorne. You sound as if you approve. I approve of strength, of rage given purpose, of a warrior who would challenge even the gods themselves. Khorne leaned forward, his throne creaking. This one burned his way out of hell itself. Twice. This one carved through armies because they stood between him and his vengeance. This one broke the cycle of patricide that had ruled his world since creation began. Khorne's eyes, burning pits that held the screams of 10,000 battlefields, narrowed. And now he's here, in my galaxy, walking, refusing, unchained. What will you do, my lord? Khorne smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. I will remind him what he is. Rage does not simply vanish, Skulltaker. It sleeps. It waits. And when it wakes— He stood. The movement sent shockwaves through his realm. Demons across 1 billion worlds felt their master's attention shift and cowered. When it wakes, he will remember. And he will come to me. Not as a slave. Not as a pawn. Khorne's smile widened. As an equal. My lord, that is blasphemy. There are no equals to the gods of the warp. There is only— Khorne's hand moved. Casual, almost lazy. It caught Skulltaker's head and crushed it like rotted fruit. The demon's body collapsed. Its essence screamed back into the warp, already reforming somewhere distant, learning a lesson about interrupting its master. Khorne flicked the remains from his claw. There are no equals in this warp. But he is not of this warp. He comes from a place where gods could die, where mortals could kill them, a place where faith was not enough. He turned back to the viewing pool. The figure was smaller now, still walking, still refusing. I will test him, Khorne decided. Not yet. Not directly, but soon. I will send something to remind him, to wake what sleeps inside, to show him that in this galaxy there is no walking away. There is only war, only blood, only rage eternal. Khorne raised his hand, drew a symbol in the air. Where his claw passed, reality bled. The symbol pulsed, grew, reached toward the material realm like a searching tongue. Go, Khorne commanded. Find the ghost. Test him. If he is worthy, bring him to me alive. If not— The symbol flared and vanished. In the Materium on Carthagos Prime, the sky began to change. In the crystal labyrinth, where paths led everywhere and nowhere, where a single step could take you to the end of time or the beginning of thought. Tzeentch watched. The architect of fate had 10,000 eyes, saw 10,000 futures, played 10,000 games all at once, and right now, all 10,000 eyes were focused on one tiny figure walking across a desert. Change, Tzeentch whispered. Its voice was 9 voices, speaking in harmony and discord simultaneously. Such wonderful, terrible change. Around it, Demons of crystalline light and impossible geometry danced. They were fragments of Tzeentch's will, given form and purpose. They whispered secrets, told lies that were true, and truths that were lies. One of them, Lord of Change, whose name was a mathematical equation that described the heat-death of universes, floated closer. Master of plans, weaver of destinies, this anomaly troubles the great game. Khorne moves to claim it. Should we intervene? Tzeentch's laugh was the sound of a million possibilities collapsing into one. Intervene. Number. Observe? Yes. Manipulate? Perhaps. The architect gestured, and the space before them split open. Inside the split, visions danced. Kratos kneeling before Khorne, chains burning red. Kratos standing against the Emperor, defiant and alone. Kratos walking endlessly through the void, never stopping, never dying, never living. Kratos burning. Kratos screaming. Kratos silent. Kratos with the weapon of a god in his hands, tearing the Imperium apart. Kratos defending Terra itself, chains glowing white against the darkness. Each vision was possible. Each vision was real. Each vision existed in quantum superposition until observation collapsed it into one reality. So many paths, Tzeentch mused. So many choices. He brings chaos to order, uncertainty to the certain. He is change incarnate. The architect's many mouths smiled. I approve. Should we guide him, Master? Shape his path toward... No. Tzeentch's voices harmonized into something almost serious. This one has already broken fate once. In his reality, destiny was written by gods, and he tore the pages apart and used them for kindling. The Lord of Change recoiled. Impossible. Fate cannot be broken. Only delayed, altered, viewed from different angles. But not. This one did. This one chose free will over divine mandate. This one looked at gods who had written his story and said no. Tzeentch turned all its eyes on the daemon. Do you understand what that means? Silence. It means, Tzeentch continued, that we cannot predict him, cannot bind him with prophecy or shape him with plans. He exists outside the game. Which makes him dangerous, the Lord of Change finished. Interesting, Tzeentch corrected. Dangerous is boring, predictable. He is interesting, and anything interesting must be watched, studied. Perhaps, when the time comes, tempted. The visions shifted again. Kratos holding a book. The book contained every spell, every secret, every truth the galaxy hid. Kratos refusing the book, walking away. The book burning in his wake. Tzeentch saw both futures, saw them balanced perfectly on a knife's edge, saw that the choice would come down to a single moment, a single word, a single thought in the ghost's mind. Perfect, Tzeentch breathed. Absolutely perfect. Win or lose, this will be magnificent. The architect settled back into its impossible throne. Around it, the crystal labyrinth shifted. New paths formed. Old paths collapsed. The future rewrote itself moment by moment, and in one tiny corner of infinity, a figure walked across a desert, unaware that gods were watching. Or perhaps simply not caring. In the garden of Nurgle, where everything rotted eternally, and that rot was beautiful. Grandfather Nurgle tended his plagues. He was a vast thing, bloated, diseased. His skin was a canvas of every sickness that had ever existed. Boils the size of planets, wounds that wept galaxies, organs that grew outside his body, pulsing with obscene life. He was hideous. He was magnificent. He was love incarnate. Around him, Nurglings, tiny demon things that giggled and played and spread disease wherever they touched, scurried about. They tended the plague trees, fed the rot gardens, sang songs about entropy and decay. Nurgle smiled as he worked. He always smiled. Life was beautiful. Death was beautiful. The cycle was beautiful. Everything had its place. Everything had its time. Grandfather? A voice, wet, gurgling, affectionate. One of his greater demons, a great unclean one named Kugath, approached. Have you sensed it? The disturbance? Nurgle looked up from the plague he was cultivating, a beautiful thing that would turn flesh into flowers. Oh, the newcomer. Yes, I've felt him. He troubles the others, Grandfather. Khorne wants to claim him. Tzeentch wants to study him. Should we? No. Nurgle's voice was gentle, patient, like a grandfather explaining something simple to a beloved child. Let them play their games. Let them rage and scheme. We simply... Wait, Grandfather? Yes, child. Nurgle gestured with one rotted hand, and the garden around them shifted. In a pool of stagnant water, beautiful, teeming with life and death, an image formed. Kratos, walking, alone. Look at him, Nurgle said softly. Look at what he carries. Not weapons, not power. Burden. Loss. Grief. The Plague Lord's smile was almost sad. Almost. He has lost everything. Everyone, his family, his gods, his purpose. He is hollow, empty, a vessel waiting to be filled. Then we should wait, Nurgle repeated, because eventually, everyone comes to me. Everyone. Khorne can offer rage, but rage burns out. Tzeentch can offer knowledge, but knowledge brings despair. Slaanesh can offer pleasure, but pleasure loses meaning. Nurgle leaned down, his face, kind despite its horror, filling Kugath's vision. But I offer peace, acceptance, the understanding that all things end, all things decay, and in that decay, rest. He turned back to the image. The figure walked, step after step, never stopping, never resting. He walks because he cannot stop, Nurgle said, because stopping means thinking. Thinking means remembering, and remembering means pain. So he walks, and walks, and walks. Nurgle's smile widened. But everyone gets tired eventually. Everyone needs to rest. And when he does, when the weight becomes too much, when the endless walking loses all meaning, he will come to you, Kugath whispered, understanding. He will come to me, Nurgle agreed. Not because I take him, but because he chooses. Because in the end, everyone chooses peace over war, stillness over motion, death over endless, exhausting life. The Plague Lord returned to his work, tending his garden, cultivating his diseases, waiting, always waiting. Because time meant nothing to Nurgle, time was decay, and decay was love. The others can fight over him, Nurgle said cheerfully. Contest him, challenge him, try to claim him. And when they all fail, when he's tired and broken and done, he patted a bloom of beautiful rot. I'll be here, arms open, offering what he truly needs, an ending. In the pool, the figure walked on, and in the garden, Nurgle hummed a lullaby about the heat death of universes. Patient, kind, inevitable. In the palace of excess, where every sensation was amplified beyond mortal comprehension, where pleasure and pain merged into one screaming note of perfection, Slaanesh watched. The Dark Prince was beauty, was horror, was both and neither. Its form shifted, male, female, something beyond gender entirely. It lounged on a throne of living flesh, surrounded by demons who were themselves works of terrible art. Music played. Not music as mortals understood it. Each note was the death scream of a species. Each harmony was the birth cry of a new depravity. It was magnificent. Slaanesh tilted its head, currently female, currently draped in silks made from the skin of saints, and considered the image before it. A warrior, walking, alone, refusing pleasure, refusing pain, refusing sensation. How boring. N'Kari, Slaanesh purred. From behind the throne, a keeper of secrets emerged, beautiful, androgynous, perfect in every way that made mortals weep with desire and horror. My prince? This newcomer, the God-slayer, he interests me. He seems rather dull, my prince. Look at him. Walking. Always walking. No pleasure, no indulgence, just purpose. Exactly. Slaanesh stood. The movement was liquid, graceful, every gesture a seduction. Do you know what's more delicious than someone who indulges in every pleasure? No, my prince. Someone who denies themselves everything. Slaanesh's smile was radiant, terrible. Self-denial is its own form of excess, darling. Asceticism taken to the extreme. He walks endlessly. That's addiction. He refuses to stop. That's compulsion. He denies himself rest, pleasure, peace. That's the most exquisite form of self-flagellation. The Dark Prince circled the image, studied it from every angle. He's already mine. He just doesn't know it yet. My prince? Look deeper. Look at what drives him. Not duty. That's Khorne's domain. Not curiosity. That's Tzeentch's game. Not acceptance. That's Nurgle's lie. Slaanesh leaned close to the image. No. What drives him is guilt. Shame. The memory of what he's done. Who he's killed. What he's lost. Slaanesh's fingers traced the air, as if caressing something only it could see. He murdered his own family. I can taste it on him. The memory. The horror. The moment he realized what he'd done. That is the most exquisite agony. That is suffering refined to its purest form. And suffering, my dear N'Kari, is just pleasure viewed from a different angle. The Keeper of Secrets shivered with delight. What will you offer him? Nothing, Slaanesh said. Not yet. The others will tire him out. Khorne will make him rage. Tzeentch will make him question. Nurgle will make him weary. And when he's been through all of that, when he's exhausted every option, the Dark Prince's smile was transcendent, obscene. I will offer him what he truly wants. Not peace, not knowledge, not rage. I will offer him feeling, real feeling, not the numbness he's wrapped himself in, not the walking death he's chosen. I will offer him the chance to experience again. Love, pain, joy, sorrow, all of it. Raw, unfiltered, pure. And if he refuses, then I'll offer him the alternative. Slaanesh's voice dropped to a whisper. I'll offer him nothing. Emptiness. The void he so desperately wants. I'll offer to take away his memories, his guilt, his pain. I'll make him forget. And forgetting? Forgetting is the ultimate self-indulgence, the ultimate escape. Slaanesh turned away from the image. The music swelled. Demons danced. The palace writhed with sensation. He'll come to me, Slaanesh promised. They always do. Because in the end, everyone wants to feel something. Or nothing. It doesn't matter which. Either way. The Dark Prince's laughter was like crystal shattering. Either way, they're mine. The four gods watched. 4 perspectives. 4 plans. 4 certain futures. But in the Materium, the figure just kept walking. Kratos felt their attention, felt it like pressure against his skull, like chains trying to wrap around his will. He'd felt it before, in his own world, when the gods had noticed him, when they'd tried to use him, control him, shape him into their weapon. It hadn't worked then. It wouldn't work now. The chains at his wrists hummed, a warning, a reminder of what he'd been, what he'd done, what he'd refused to become. In the warp, the 4 gods planned and schemed and waited. But Kratos had already defeated 4 gods once before. He would do it again if he had to. But for now, he just walked. 1 step at a time, away from their attention, away from their hunger, into the desert where nothing lived and nothing could find him. Except he was wrong, because something was already coming. Something Khorne had sent. Something that would test him. And the sky, which had been clear for hours, began to bleed red again. The sky didn't tear this time. It bled. Slowly, like a wound opening in flesh. The blue faded to pink, then red, then the color of old blood left to dry in the sun. No sound, no warning, just color draining from reality and being replaced with something wrong. Kratos stopped walking. He'd felt this before. Not here, not in this galaxy. But the sensation was familiar. The weight of divine attention pressing down. The moment before, a god decided to move a piece on their board. The chains at his wrists grew warm, not hot, just aware. He turned his head, scanning the horizon. Desert in every direction, rock formations in the distance, the twin suns of this system hanging low, casting long shadows. Nothing moved. Everything was still. Too still. The wind had stopped. The sand had stopped shifting. Even the heat shimmer in the distance had frozen, as if reality itself was holding its breath. Then the screaming started. Not human screaming. Not the sound of fear or pain or anger. This was something else. This was joy. Religious ecstasy. The sound of something that lived only to kill, finally being given permission. The red sky split. And they came through. Demons. Not the lesser things. Not the cannon fodder that came in hordes. These were bloodletters. Khorne's chosen infantry. 7 feet tall, muscles like corded brass, skin the color of arterial spray. Each one carried a hellblade, a sword forged from the screams of the dying, edges that could cut through reality itself. They fell from the wound in the sky like rain made of rage. 10, 20, 50, 100. They hit the sand and kept coming. No formation, no strategy, just pure, distilled violence given form and purpose. Their leader, if such creatures could be said to have leaders, was larger than the rest. 8 feet of muscle and horn. Its blade was longer, darker, etched with runes that hurt to look at. It pointed that blade at Kratos, and it spoke. Its voice was wet, gurgling, like someone drowning in their own enthusiasm. "Blood for the blood god," the horde echoed. "Skulls for the skull throne!" They charged. Kratos didn't move. Not yet. He watched them come. Calculated distances, speeds, angles of attack. He'd fought armies before. Fought gods. Fought things that shouldn't exist. These were just soldiers. Rabid, yes. Insane, yes. But soldiers nonetheless. And soldiers could be killed. The first bloodletter reached him. Its hellblade swung in a perfect horizontal arc, aimed to separate his head from his shoulders. Kratos moved. Not away. Forward. Inside the arc. His hand came up, caught the demon's wrist. Twisted. The sound of brass bones breaking was like a bell ringing in a church of violence. The demon shrieked. Not in pain. Demons of Khorne knew no pain. In frustration. Kratos' other hand shot forward, fingers extended, aimed at the throat. His hand punched through brass skin, through whatever passed for flesh in these things, through the back of its neck. He ripped the spine out. The demon's body spasmed. Fell its essence screamed back into the warp, already reforming, already eager to try again. But Kratos was already moving. 2 more demons came from the sides. Coordinated attack. Blades high and low, cutting off escape routes. He didn't escape. He dropped. Let their blades pass overhead. Swept his leg out in a circle. Both demons crashed down, their legs taken out from under them. Before they could recover, Kratos was on them. Fists like hammers, each strike pulping brass flesh, each impact sending shockwaves through the sand. 5 seconds, 2 demons dead. The horde adjusted, learned, came at him from all sides simultaneously. Good, Kratos thought. Let them come. Let them learn what happens when you test the man who killed Ares. The chains at his wrists began to glow. White light, pure and cold. The blades of chaos, or what they'd become in this new reality, ignited. He swung. The first blade carved through 3 demons like they were made of paper. Their bodies separated, top from bottom, and collapsed into ash and ichor. The second blade followed. Horizontal sweep. 4 more demons tried to block. The blade went through their hellzords like they were made of glass, then through their bodies, then out the other side, trailing fire. The horde roared, not in fear. They knew no fear, in joy. Finally, an opponent worthy of their god's attention. They pressed in. Wall of brass and blade. Too many to dodge, too many to block. Kratos didn't try to do either. He spun. The chains extended, the blades becoming orbits of white fire around him. Everything within 15 feet was cut, burned, destroyed. Demon ichor sprayed into the air like a fountain, raining down and sizzling where it hit the sand. 20 dead. 80 remained. They didn't slow, didn't hesitate. They pressed forward, climbing over the bodies of their fallen kin, trampling the remains into the glass. A hellblade got through, sliced across Kratos' arm. The edge was hot enough to melt steel, sharp enough to cut through ceramite. It barely scratched his skin. The demon stared at its blade, confused. Looked at Kratos, looked back at its blade. Kratos' fist caved in its face. But more came. Always more. They piled on him, weight of numbers. Dozens of them, grasping, clawing, stabbing. Their blades found gaps in his armor, cut into his flesh, drew blood that should have been mortal, would have been mortal, for anyone else. Kratos roared. The sound was primal, ancient. It carried across the desert, echoed off the rocks, made the ground tremble. White light erupted from his body. Not fire, pure force. The demons clinging to him were thrown back, their brass bodies tumbling across the sand like children's toys. He stood, blood running down his arms, wounds already closing, the blades burning brighter than before. The remaining demons, perhaps 50 now, paused. For just a moment, just a heartbeat. They'd been fighting for hours, or minutes. Time meant nothing in combat. But they'd been fighting, and they'd been dying, and this prey would not fall. Their leader, the large one with the darker blade, stepped forward. It was smarter than the others. Kratos could see it in its movements, the way it held its blade, the way it circled instead of charging. "You are strong," it said. Its voice was clearer than the others, almost thoughtful. "The blood god was right. You are worthy." Kratos said nothing, just watched, waiting. But worthy means nothing without submission, without rage, without the joy of slaughter. The demon tilted its head. "Why do you fight without passion? Without ecstasy? Where is your rage, Godslayer?" "Gone," Kratos said quietly. "Impossible. Rage doesn't die. It sleeps. Let me wake it." The demon moved, fast, faster than the others. Its blade came in low, then high, then low again, a pattern designed to confuse, to force errors. Kratos blocked each strike. The impact sent sparks flying. The sound of blade meeting blade was like a forge working at full capacity. "Yes!" the demon hissed. "Feel it!" The battle, the glory, the blood. Kratos' expression didn't change. His movements were mechanical, precise, empty. The demon pressed harder, faster. Its blade became a blur. Each strike carried the weight of Khorne's will behind it. Kratos matched it, step for step, block for block. His blades moved in perfect counter rhythm, neutralizing every attack before it could land. "Rage!" the demon screamed. "Rage at me! Hate me! Feel something!" Kratos caught the demon's blade between his crossed chains. held it, looked into the demon's burning eyes. "I feel nothing," he said, and twisted. The hellblade shattered, not broke, shattered, into 1,000 pieces that dissolved into red mist before they hit the ground. The demon stared at its empty hands, at Kratos, back at its hands. "Impossible," it whispered. "The rage. You must have the rage. Without it, you're just empty." "Yes," Kratos agreed, and drove both blades into the demon's chest. White fire consumed it from the inside. Its scream was not of pain, but of confusion, of something failing to understand how it could lose, how rage could fail. It collapsed into ash. The remaining diamonds stood there, for the first time in their existence, uncertain. They'd been sent to test the God-Slayer, to wake his rage, to bring him to Khorne in the throes of bloodlust. But there was no bloodlust, no rage, no passion, just killing, clinical, efficient, empty. One demon, braver or more foolish than the rest, charged anyway. Kratos killed it without looking. A backhanded swing that took its head off mid-stride. Another tried. Same result. Blade through the chest, ash before it hit the ground. The horde broke. Not in fear, they were incapable of fear, but in confusion, in the realization that they'd been sent to fight something they didn't understand, something that killed without hate, without joy, without anything. They retreated, not running. Demons of Khorne never ran, but backing away, giving ground, trying to comprehend. Kratos stood in a circle of ash and ichor. His armor was cracked, his skin was bleeding, but he stood. And overhead, the red sky began to fade, blue returning slowly, as if reality was remembering how to be normal again. In the warp, Khorne watched the viewing pool with narrowed eyes. "Interesting," he rumbled. "Very interesting." Skulltaker, reformed now, his essence pulled back together, knelt beside the throne. "My lord, the test failed. He killed your chosen without rage, without passion. He fights like a machine." "No," Khorne said slowly. "Not a machine. Machines have purpose. This one fights like someone who's already dead. Someone who continues only because stopping would require a choice, and he's done with choices." "Then he's useless to you, my lord. Without rage, without passion, he cannot serve the blood god." Khorne's laugh was like an avalanche of skulls. "Useless. Number. Challenging. Yes. The rage is there, Skulltaker. Buried, sleeping, denied so deeply he's convinced himself it's dead. But rage doesn't die. It can't. It's fundamental, primal. All I need to do is—" He trailed off, thinking, planning. "Is find what he cares about, what he still has left, and threaten it. My lord, he has nothing left. His world is gone. His family is dead. He walks toward oblivion. There's nothing to threaten." "Everyone has something," Khorne said, "even if they don't know it themselves. Find it. And when you do, bring me the ghost, in chains if you must. But bring him to me. I will show him what rage truly is. I will remind him of the god he killed. And if he refuses—" Khorne's smile was all teeth. "Then we'll give him no choice. We'll burn everything around him until the only option left is to rage or watch the galaxy die. As you command, my lord." Skulltaker vanished, sent back into the materium with purpose and will. Khorne watched the viewing pool for a moment longer, watched the figure standing in the desert, surrounded by the ash of 100 demons. "You can't run from what you are," Khorne whispered. "You can't deny the blood forever. Sooner or later you'll remember. And when you do—" The blood god leaned back in his throne, satisfied. "You'll be mine." On Carthagos Prime, Kratos stood in the circle of ash. His wounds had stopped bleeding. They'd heal. They always did. Curses had their uses. He looked at his hands, at the blood-red, brass-tinted, that covered them. Demon ichor. Not the same as mortal blood. Different, wrong, but blood nonetheless. He'd sworn once, a long time ago, that he was done with killing, done with rage, done with being a weapon for gods. That had lasted about as long as his oaths usually did. The sky was blue again. Normal. The tear had closed. The demons were gone, their essence scattered back into the warp. But they'd be back. He knew that. Whatever god had sent them, and he knew which one, knew the taste of war gods, wouldn't give up. They never did. They'd send more, bigger, stronger. They'd escalate until he broke or until they got bored. He'd lived that pattern before. It never ended well. He looked east, toward the horizon, toward emptiness. He could keep walking, could disappear into the wastes. Let them hunt him until they lost interest or until he found a way off this world. Or he could turn around, go back to the hive, find whoever was in charge and tell them what was coming. The thought surprised him. When had he started caring about collateral damage? When had he started thinking about protecting people who meant nothing to him? He thought of Atreus, of Faye, of Sparta burning because he'd been too blind to see what Ares was doing, of Athens falling because he'd been too angry to think, of Olympus in ruins because he'd been too broken to stop. He was tired of destroying things. But if he stayed, if he fought, he'd destroy this world too. It was what he did, what he was, a destroyer, a killer, a weapon that gods wielded until it turned on them. He started walking again, east, always east, away from the hive, away from civilization. They'd be safer without him. Everyone was safer without him. The chains at his wrists clinked softly as he moved. The wounds on his arms were already closing. By sunset, they'd be scars. By tomorrow, the scars would fade. He'd heal. He always healed. But the weight never got lighter. Behind him, the ash of 100 demons began to blow away in the wind. Soon there'd be no evidence of the battle, no proof it had happened at all. Just another fight, another victory, another meaningless moment in an endless war. He kept walking. And in orbit, Inquisitor Voss watched the thermal readings and wondered what kind of being could kill 100 demons and then just walk away. What kind of being fought without joy, without rage, without anything? She'd spent her entire life studying threats to humanity, cataloging horrors, learning how to kill things that shouldn't exist. But this was new. This was a threat that didn't threaten, a killer that didn't hunt, a weapon that refused to fire. "Magos," she said quietly. "Tell me you recorded that." "Every second, Inquisitor. Though I'm not certain what I recorded. The energy signatures were impossible. The combat efficiency was disturbing." "Disturbing how?" "He killed 107 demons in 14 minutes. 0 wasted movement, 0 tactical errors, perfect economy of motion." The Magos paused. "Inquisitor, nothing fights like that. Not Space Marines, not Custodes, not even the Emperor's own. Because they fight with something to lose," Voss said quietly. "They fight with hope. With duty. With something." "And him?" Voss looked at the figure disappearing into the distance. "He fights like he's already lost everything." 3 hours later, the sky opened again. But this time, it wasn't subtle, wasn't a slow bleeding of color. This was violence. Pure, unfiltered violence against reality itself. The sky didn't just tear, it screamed. Kratos had made it another 15 kilometers into the wastes. The terrain had changed from sand to broken rock, jagged formations that looked like the bones of dead giants jutting from the earth. No vegetation, no water, nothing that lived. Perfect. He'd found an outcropping that offered some shade from the twin suns. Not that he needed it. Heat and cold were just sensations now, easily ignored. But old habits died hard. Find cover. Assess your surroundings. Prepare for the next fight. Always the next fight. He'd been sitting there, chains pooled around him, staring at nothing, when the temperature dropped. Not gradually, Instantly, the air went from desert hot to winter cold in a single heartbeat. His breath misted. Frost began to form on the rocks. Then the sound started, low at first, a rumble that came from everywhere and nowhere, from the ground beneath him, from the air around him, from inside his own chest, a vibration that resonated with something primal, something that existed before words or thought, the sound of a god's attention. Kratos stood slowly. The chains at his wrists began to glow white, responding to the threat before his conscious mind fully registered it. The sky above turned red, not the pale red of before, deep crimson, the color of fresh arterial spray, the color of a wound that would never close. And in that red sky, a shape began to form. Vast, impossible, a face made of brass and rage and endless hunger, eyes that were portals to battlefields that had never ended, a mouth that was a canyon filled with screaming skulls. Khorne, not manifesting, not truly. Even gods had rules, but projecting, letting his presence bleed through the warp into reality, just enough to be seen, to be heard, to be felt. The projection focused on Kratos. 2 eyes, each one large enough to swallow planets, narrowed. When the blood god spoke, every rock in a 100-kilometer radius cracked. The ground itself split. Blood, impossible blood, began to seep from the cracks, as if the planet itself was bleeding in sympathy. Ghost. The word hit like a physical force. Kratos felt his knees buckle. Just slightly, just for a moment, before he locked them. Refused to kneel, refused to bow. He'd knelt to gods before, to Ares, to Zeus, to the others. He was done kneeling. You walk my galaxy, kill my servants, deny my gifts. Khorne's voice was 1,000 battlefields speaking in unison. Yet you do not rage, do not revel, do not embrace what you are. Kratos said nothing, just stared up at the projection. His jaw was set. His hands had curled into fists. I have watched you, Godslayer. Watched you kill without joy. Fight without passion. Move without purpose. The projection leaned closer, as if studying an interesting insect. You are broken. Incomplete. A blade that has forgotten its edge. Still, Kratos said nothing. But I remember. I remember Sparta. Remember the night Ares gave you power. Remember the moment you murdered your family. Remember the rage that followed. The beautiful, perfect rage. Kratos' hands tightened. The chains at his wrists flared brighter. I remember Olympus burning. Remember you carving through your own pantheon like a scythe through wheat. Remember Zeus dying at your feet, begging. Khorne's grin widened. That was glory. That was perfection. That was what you are. What I was, Kratos said quietly, the first words he'd spoken. Not anymore. Lies. The word made the ground shake harder. Rage does not die. It sleeps, and I will wake it. You will fail. Khorne's laughter was apocalyptic. Birds fell from the sky kilometers away, their hearts stopped by the sound. Small creatures in the rocks died instantly, their brains unable to process the noise. Fail. I am Khorne. I am war eternal. I am the rage of every soul that has ever lived. I do not fail. You will with me. The projection's eyes narrowed. The temperature dropped further. The blood seeping from the ground began to freeze. You think you can resist? You who bathed in the blood of gods? You who destroyed entire pantheons? You are mine, Ghost. You have always been mine. You just didn't know it. I belonged to Ares once, Kratos said. That ended poorly for him. Ares was weak, a pretender, a child playing at war. Khorne's voice dropped, became almost conversational. Almost. I am different. I am older than your universe, have consumed trillions. Your Ares? I would have broken him like a toy. Perhaps, Kratos admitted. But you're not breaking me. No, the grin returned. Then let us play a game, Godslayer. I will send my champions, one after another, each stronger than the last, each more glorious, and you will kill them. Kill them without rage, without joy, without anything. Khorne leaned closer still. The projection's face filled the entire sky now. And eventually, you will realize that the killing never stops. Realize that in this galaxy, there is only war, only blood, only me. And when you realize that, when the futility crushes you, when you understand that walking away just means watching others die in your place. The blood god's eyes blazed brighter. You will embrace the rage again. You will remember what you are. And you will come to me, not as a slave, not as a servant, as a brother, as an equal, as the champion I have always deserved. And if I don't, then I will tear this galaxy apart until you do. I will burn every world you walk on, kill every soul you meet, drown every civilization in blood until the only thing left is you and me and the choice you should have made from the beginning. Khorne pulled back slightly. The projection began to fade. The next champion is already on his way. He is stronger than the bloodletters, faster, smarter. He is one of my favored, one who has earned my blessing through 10,000 years of glorious slaughter. The red sky began to return to normal. The blood stopped flowing from the ground. Prove me wrong, ghost. Kill him without rage, without passion. Show me this emptiness you claim. Show me you're truly dead inside. The projection smiled. It was not a kind expression. Or prove me right, and come home. The presence vanished. The sky snapped back to blue so fast it left after images. The temperature normalized. The blood sank back into the ground, as if it had never been. Kratos stood there for a long moment. His fists were still clenched. The chains were still glowing. His jaw ached. He realized he'd been grinding his teeth. Rage? Number. Not rage, but something. Irritation. Frustration. The old, familiar feeling of being used. Of being moved around like a piece on a board by beings who thought themselves his betters. He'd spent years, centuries, learning to control that feeling, to suppress it, to let it die. But it hadn't died, had it? It had just been waiting. Sleeping. Just like Khorne said. Number. No, he wouldn't give in. Wouldn't become that thing again. The monster. The weapon. The avatar of mindless destruction. He'd learned. Changed. Atreus had taught him that. Had shown him there was more to life than killing. More to existence than rage. Even if Atreus wasn't here. Even if this galaxy was different. Even if... The ground trembled. Not an earthquake. Not the residual effect of Khorne's presence. This was something else. Something approaching. From the north, a roar echoed across the wastes. Not the scream of demons. Not the sound of madness. This was calculated, controlled. The roar of something that knew exactly what it was and exactly what it could do. Kratos turned. On the horizon, something was moving, large, fast, leaving a trail of dust and destruction in its wake. The next champion, already here, already hunting. Kratos looked down at his hands, at the chains that had never truly left him, no matter how many times he'd tried to be free. So be it, he said quietly. And he started walking. Not away. Toward the approaching shape. Toward the next fight. Because that was what he did. What he'd always done. What, apparently, he'd always be. A killer. Moving from one battle to the next. Forever. The chains hummed as he walked. White flames dancing along their length. The blades of chaos. Renamed, repurposed, but never truly changed. Eager for the next victim. Just like him. In orbit, Inquisitor Voss had watched the entire exchange through high-altitude sensors. She'd seen the sky turn red, seen the projection, seen, or rather, felt, the presence that had descended on the planet. "Magos," she said, her voice tight. Tell me that wasn't what I think it was." The tech priest was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice, usually so clinical, so detached, carried a tremor. "Inquisitor, the energy readings, the psychic resonance. By all measurements, what we just witnessed was—" "Say it," Voss ordered. "A direct manifestation of one of the ruinous powers, not a greater demon, not a herald, the god itself, reaching through the warp to speak directly to the anomaly." Voss felt her blood turn to ice. "Which one?" "The readings match historical data from the Siege of Terra, from the Horus Heresy, from every major conflict involving." The Magos paused. "Khorne, the blood god, the Lord of Skulls. Emperor protect us," Voss whispered. She'd faced demons, had fought them, banished them. But this? A god taking personal interest in something on this backwater world? "And the anomaly?" she asked. "How did it respond?" "It spoke back, refused, challenged the manifestation directly, and survived." "Apparently." Voss moved to the observation window, stared down at the planet below. Somewhere down there, a being walked, a being that had attracted the attention of a chaos god, a being that had refused that god to its face. "Captain Rull," she said into her vox, "I need your assessment. What are we dealing with?" The Grey Knight's voice came back after a moment, measured, thoughtful. "Inquisitor, in all my centuries of service, I have never encountered anything like this. The anomaly is not corrupted, is not tainted, but it is significant, powerful enough to warrant divine attention, strong enough to survive it. Your recommendation?" Another pause. Longer this time. "We should inform Terra, immediately. This is beyond our authority, beyond even the Inquisition's jurisdiction. If the ruinous powers are taking direct interest in this being, then the Lord Commander himself needs to know. Possibly even the Emperor." Voss closed her eyes. Going to Terra, to the Inquisitorial Council, admitting that something on her watch had grown so significant that chaos gods were manifesting to speak with it. Her career was over. Her reputation would be destroyed. The Ordo Malleus would pick apart every decision she'd made. But that didn't matter. Not compared to this. "Prepare the astropathic choir," she ordered. "Encrypt the message under Obsidian Black protocols. Send it to the Grand Master and the Lord Commander's staff. Mark it urgent." Content of the message? Voss opened her eyes, looked down at the planet. "Tell them we have a situation. Tell them a being of unknown origin has arrived. Tell them it can kill demons without effort, resist chaos corruption, and has attracted the personal attention of Khorne himself." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "And tell them I believe this being may be from before the Age of Strife, from the ancient legends, from when gods could still die." "You believe it's him? The myth? "I believe," Voss interrupted, "that we're about to witness something that hasn't happened in this galaxy for 10,000 years. Something that the Emperor himself tried to make everyone forget." "What, Inquisitor?" "A god killer, walking free, unchained, unbowed." She turned from the window. "Send the message. Now, before Khorne sends something we can't stop." The Magos bowed and left. Voss stood there, alone with her thoughts. She'd spent her entire life protecting humanity from chaos, from demons, from corruption. But what did you do when the threat wasn't chaos? What did you do when something walked your world that was neither loyal nor traitorous, neither holy nor heretical? What did you do with a god killer? The answer, she suspected, would cost more than she was willing to pay. But she'd find out soon enough, because below, the god killer was walking toward his next battle, and when it was over, When the dust settled and the bodies were counted, the galaxy would have to decide. Was he a threat to be destroyed, or a weapon to be wielded? Either way, nothing would ever be the same. Kratos walked across the broken stone, heading toward the approaching champion. The roar was getting closer, louder, more distinct. He could hear the joy in it, the anticipation, the eagerness for battle. It reminded him of himself. Once, long ago, when fighting had been glorious, when each victory had meant something. Now fighting was just necessary, like breathing, like existing. You did it because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering meant the champion crested the ridge ahead. Kratos stopped. It was massive, easily 12 feet tall, armor of brass and bone fused together, skull helm with horns that curved like scythes. In its hands, a great axe that pulsed with red light, not forged in any foundry, but manifested from pure will and violence. A demon prince of Khorne, one of the favored few, a mortal who had fought so long, so well, so brutally, that Khorne himself had elevated them, made them more than demon, more than mortal, made them eternal. The prince stopped 50 meters away, planted its axe in the ground. The impact cracked the stone for meters in all directions. When it spoke, its voice was deep, cultured, almost refined. Kratos of Sparta, the ghost of war, the god slayer, the breaker of chains. It tilted its head. I have so many names for you. All of them interesting. Kratos said nothing, just watched, assessed, planned. My name, the prince continued, is Kulmak. Once, I was a chapter master of the World Eaters. Once, I served the Emperor. Once, I believed in duty and honor and sacrifice. It laughed. The sound was like steel being sharpened. Then I learned the truth, that there is only war, only blood, only glorious, endless battle. And I embraced it. For 10,000 years I have fought, killed, ascended. And now? Kulmak pulled its axe from the ground, held it ready. Now I have the honor of testing the one who killed Olympus, the one who murdered gods, the one who thinks he can walk away from what he is. I'm not interested in your story, Kratos said. No? Kulmak grinned behind its skull helm. That's good, because I'm not here to talk. I'm here to do what the bloodletters couldn't. I'm here to make you remember, to make you feel again. The prince charged, not the mindless charge of the lesser demons. This was controlled, calculated, each step placed perfectly, each movement efficient. It closed the distance in seconds. The axe came down, a strike that would split a tank in half. Kratos rolled aside. The axe hit where he'd been standing. The stone exploded, sending shrapnel in every direction. He came up swinging, his blades carved toward the prince's exposed side. Kulmak twisted, impossibly fast for something that size, blocked with the axe shaft. The impact sent sparks flying. They separated, circled. Good, Kulmak said. You're fast. But speed without rage is just running. Show me the fury, Ghost. Show me the god killer. Kratos didn't respond, just attacked again. And the real fight began. The battle was not beautiful. There was no elegance to it, no grace. Just two forces of nature colliding over and over, each one testing the other, each one looking for the weakness that would end it. Kulmak fought like a storm given form. His axe moved in patterns that defied physics, horizontal sweeps that became vertical strikes mid-swing, feints that turned into crushing overhead blows. Each attack carried enough force to level buildings. Each movement was backed by 10,000 years of experience. Kratos fought like he always had, efficiently, brutally, without wasted motion. The blades of chaos sang as they cut through the air, white fire trailing behind them like the tail of comets. He ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off, rolled past a strike that split the ground where he'd been, came up inside the prince's guard, and drove both blades into its side. They punched through brass armor, through whatever passed for flesh in a demon prince, deep enough to kill anything mortal. Kulmak laughed, grabbed Kratos by the throat, lifted him off the ground, slammed him into the stone hard enough to create a crater. The world went white with pain. Kratos felt ribs crack, felt his spine compress, felt blood fill his mouth. The prince leaned down, bringing its skull-helm face close to Kratos's. Do you feel that? That pain? That's real. That's honest. That's what it means to be alive. Its grip tightened. Stop running from it. Stop pretending you're dead inside. Feel it! Kratos' hand shot up, grabbed the prince's wrist. The chains wrapped around it, biting into brass flesh. He pulled. Not away. Toward. Using the prince's own strength against it. Brought his knee up into where a mortal's solar plexus would be. The prince grunted. Its grip loosened. Just for a moment. Kratos twisted free, kicked off the prince's chest, put distance between them, landed in a crouch, breathing hard. Blood dripped from his mouth. His ribs were already healing. Cursed vitality wouldn't let him die that easily. But the pain remained. Sharp, insistent, real. Kulmak stood, brushed off its armor. The wounds Kratos had inflicted were already closing, demon flesh knitting itself back together. You fight well, the prince said. Better than most. But you fight like you're already defeated, like this is just a chore. Where's the passion? Where's the joy? There is no joy, Kratos said quietly. Lies! Kulmak roared. I've read your history. I've seen your wars. You were glorious once. You reveled in battle. You made the ground shake with your fury. That man is dead. Then I'll resurrect him, the prince charged again. This time there was no holding back, no testing, just pure, overwhelming violence. Kratos met the charge. Blades against axe, fire against fire, force against force. The impacts were like thunder. Each collision sent shock waves rippling across the wasteland. Stone shattered. The air itself seemed to scream. They fought across the broken landscape, up ridges, down into valleys, through rock formations that exploded under the force of their battle. Minutes passed, or hours. Time lost meaning. There was only the fight, only the movement, only the next block, the next strike, the next moment of survival. Kratos felt his body beginning to fail, felt exhaustion creeping in, not the exhaustion of the flesh, but the exhaustion of the soul. The weight of fighting another pointless battle against another opponent who wouldn't stay dead. How many had he killed? How many times had he fought and won and moved on only to fight again? In Sparta, in Greece, in Olympus, across the Norse realms, and now here. Always here. Always fighting. Always alone. The prince's axe caught him across the chest, tore through armor, through skin, through muscle. Kratos stumbled back, blood pouring from the wound. Too much blood. Even his cursed healing couldn't keep up with this. Kulmak advanced, slowly now, savoring the moment. There, the prince said. There, in your eyes. I see it. Fear? Number? Frustration? Perhaps? But something else, too. Something deeper. It raised its axe. Acceptance. You think you're going to die. And part of you, the part you won't admit exists, is relieved. Kratos said nothing, just stood there, swaying slightly. The wound in his chest was healing, but slowly. Too slowly. Let me offer you something, Ghost, Kulmak said. Join us. Not as a slave, not as a servant, as a brother. Khorne offers you what no other god can. Purpose, clarity, an end to this walking death you call existence. I have heard this offer before, Kratos managed. His voice was weak. from Ares, from Zeus, from others. It always ends the same way. This is different. Khorne doesn't want to control you. He wants to set you free. Free from guilt, from memory, from the chains you've wrapped around yourself. All you have to do is embrace what you are, what you've always been. A killer. A warrior, Kulmak corrected. There's a difference. One kills because they must. The other kills because it's glorious. Beautiful. True. The prince extended a hand. Join us. Fight forever. Die never. No joy again. For a moment, just a moment, Kratos considered it. What would it be like? To fight without guilt, to kill without remembering, to exist in the eternal present of battle, never looking back, never moving forward, just being. It would be easier, so much easier than this, than the walking, the remembering, the endless weight of choices made and lives taken. He looked at the prince's hand, at the offer, at the promise of oblivion wrapped in blood and glory. Then he thought of Atreus, of the boy who'd shown him there was more, who'd proven that even monsters could change, could grow, could be better. And he thought of Faye, her last words, her faith that he could be more than a weapon. They were gone. Both gone. This wasn't even his galaxy, his world, his anything. But their lessons remained. Their voices, however faint, still echoed. You are more than this. Kratos looked up at the prince, at the hand still extended, at the offer of escape. No, he said. The word was quiet, tired, but certain. Kulmak's hand lowered slowly. Then you choose this? This walking death, this meaningless existence? I choose nothing, Kratos said. I simply continue. That's not living. I know. The prince stared at him. For a long moment, neither moved. The wind blew across the wasteland, carrying dust and the smell of blood. Finally, Kulmak shook its head. You are the saddest thing I have ever seen, and I have seen civilizations die screaming. The prince raised its axe. If you won't join us, and you won't die properly, then I'll make this last blow one you'll remember. I'll send you to whatever afterlife awaits God-killers. And maybe there, you'll finally find what you're looking for. The axe came down. Kratos didn't move, didn't dodge, didn't block. He was tired. So tired. And maybe, just maybe, the prince was right. Maybe this was the end he'd been walking toward all along. The axe descended, red light trailing, the killing blow. And something inside Kratos broke. Not his will, not his strength. Something else. Something that had been cracked and patched and held together with guilt and memory and the desperate hope that if he just kept walking, kept existing, kept denying what he was, it would eventually mean something. That fiction shattered. And in its place, not rage, not fury, not bloodlust, just clarity. He'd been lying to himself, pretending the rage was gone, that he'd changed, that he was something other than what he'd always been. But rage didn't die. Khorne had been right about that. It slept. It waited. It stayed buried under layers of guilt and self-deception. And right now, it woke up. Not because he wanted it to, not because he chose it, but because a part of him, the part that had survived Sparta and Olympus and everything else, refused to die to some demon pretending to be profound. The blades of chaos erupted, not white this time, white and red, fire and rage mixing, creating something that was neither pure nor corrupt, just true. Kratos moved. The axe struck where he'd been. The ground exploded. He was inside the prince's guard, both blades driving upward, through the jaw, through the skull, through whatever passed for a brain in a demon prince. White-red fire erupted from the wounds, consuming from the inside. Kulmak's eyes widened. Its hands reached up, grasping weakly at the blades buried in its head. Impossible, It gurgled. You were done. You were. Never, Kratos said quietly. His voice was different now, harder, colder. I am never done. He twisted the blades. The prince's skull exploded. Its body staggered backward. Fell. Hit the ground hard enough to crack stone. For a moment it twitched, its essence trying to hold on, trying to return to the warp and reform. Kratos didn't let it. He drove the blades into the prince's chest, channeled everything, the rage, the guilt, the exhaustion, the endless fucking exhaustion of existing, into pure destructive force. White-red fire consumed the body, not burning, erasing, unmaking, tearing apart the very concept of Kulmak from reality. The Diamond Prince screamed, not in pain, in disbelief, in the horrified realization that this wasn't banishment. This was death, true death, the kind that killed gods. The fire spread, consumed, and then nothing. The body was gone. The essence was gone. Kulmak was gone. Forever. Kratos stood over the empty space where the prince had been. The blades of chaos in his hands were still burning, still hungry. He looked at them, at the white-red flames, at the weapons that had killed so many, that would kill so many more. I tried, he said to them, to himself, to the ghost of who he'd wanted to be. I tried to walk away, to be better, to be done. The flames flickered, died down, returned to white. But you were right, he continued, looking up at the sky, at the space where Khorne had manifested. The rage doesn't die. It just waits. And I am what I am. He lowered the blades, let them hang at his sides. But I will not serve you, will not join you, will not embrace what you offer. I am what I am, but I am still mine. The sky remained blue, silent. No answer came. Kratos turned, started walking again, east, always east. Behind him, the place where Kulmak had died began to smoke, black smoke that rose into the air like a funeral pyre. In the warp, Khorne sat back on his throne. For a long moment he said nothing, just watched the viewing pool, watched the ghost walk away. Finally he spoke. Interesting. Around him demons cowered, waiting for rage, for violence, for their master to unleash his fury at this failure. Instead, Khorne laughed. He killed Kulmak, not banished, killed, erased him from existence. The blood god's laughter grew. 10,000 years of service, gone, unmade, because the ghost decided it. He leaned forward, eyes burning brighter. I want him more than ever. My lord, a voice spoke. Skulltaker, reformed again. He refuses. He kills your champions. He denies you. Surely nothing, Khorne interrupted. He proved exactly what I needed him to prove. The rage is there. Sleeping, yes. Denied, yes. But there. And when it wakes, when he finally accepts it, the blood god smiled. He will be unstoppable. On Carthago's prime, in the command center of Hive Eidolon, alarms were screaming. Sir! Jest's voice was panicked. The energy readings from the wastes! They just spiked, then dropped, then nothing. Sergeant Vale moved to the screens. Define nothing. I mean nothing, sir. The demon presence is gone, completely. Not banished, not weakened, just gone, like it never existed. Vale felt cold. And the anomaly? Still there, still moving, still heading east. Vale stared at the screens, at the readouts that made no sense, at the thermal signature of something that shouldn't exist, walking away from something that no longer did. What are we dealing with? He whispered. No one answered, because no one knew. In orbit, Inquisitor Voss received the astropathic response from Terra. It was brief, encrypted under seals she'd never seen before. She decoded it with shaking hands. Message received. Matter under review at highest levels. Maintain observation. Do not engage. Do not interfere. Reinforcements inbound. ETA, 14 standard days. Addendum. Under no circumstances allow anomaly to leave system. If attempt is made, orbital bombardment authorized. Exterminatus if necessary. Further addendum. If anomaly demonstrates corruption or chaos taint, execute immediately. If clean, preserve for study. Signed, Grandmaster Voldus, Ordo Malleus. Countersigned, redacted. Voss read the message 3 times. The countersignature was redacted, encrypted so heavily even her codes couldn't break it. But she knew what that meant. Only one person's signature was redacted like that. The Emperor's representative. The Lord Commander. Maybe even... No, that was impossible. She looked down at the planet, at the world where something walked that had attracted the attention of chaos gods and the highest levels of imperial authority. "What are you?" she whispered. Below, Kratos walked, unaware of the messages, the plans, the forces mobilizing. He just walked, one step at a time, toward nothing, away from everything. The chains at his wrists clinked softly. The wound in his chest had healed. The exhaustion remained. Always the exhaustion. He thought of Atreus, of Faye, of Sparta, of everything he'd lost and everything he'd destroyed. He thought of the rage that had woken up, that he'd tried so hard to bury. And he thought of what came next, because there was always a next. Always another battle, another god, another test. In this galaxy or any other, the pattern never changed. But maybe, just maybe, he could change how he responded to it. Not by denying the rage, not by pretending it didn't exist, but by choosing when to use it, how to use it, by making it his instead of letting it make him. It wasn't much, wasn't redemption, wasn't peace, but it was something. And right now, something was enough. He kept walking, and in his wake, the desert began to heal. The blood sank into the sand, the cracks sealed, the smoke faded. Within days, there would be no evidence of the battle. No proof it had happened. Just another forgotten moment in an uncaring universe. But in the warp, 4 gods watched. 4 powers planned. 4 entities waited for the ghost of war to make his next move. And on Terra, in chambers so secret even most inquisitors didn't know they existed, very old, very powerful people began to make decisions. Decisions about what to do with a god-killer walking free. Decisions that would change the galaxy, for better or worse. 3 weeks later, the pilgrims returned to their shrine. The journey had changed them, made them quieter, more thoughtful. Father Matthias led them in prayer, but his prayers had changed too. Less rote, more questioning. What if the Emperor wasn't the only power in the universe? What if there were others? What if those others could also die? Heretical thoughts, dangerous thoughts, but thoughts that wouldn't go away. At the edge of the glass plain, where the sand had fused into strange patterns, a cult began. Small at first. A few pilgrims who'd seen the figure, who'd heard its words. They called themselves the Witnesses of Ash, and they preached a simple truth, that gods could die, that chains could break, that even the mightiest could fall. It was heresy. It was blasphemy. It was treason against the Imperium itself. But it was also true. And truth, once spoken, was very hard to kill. Far to the east, beyond the wastes, beyond the sensor range, beyond the reach of the Imperium, Kratos found what he was looking for. A ship. Ancient. Pre-imperial. Maybe even pre-human. Crashed into a canyon so deep no one had ever found it. Its systems were dead. Its crew was dust. But the hull was intact. And if he could figure out how it worked, he could leave. Could find another world, Another place to walk, another horizon to chase, away from this, away from gods who wanted to claim him, away from an empire that would either worship or destroy him, just away. He began to work. His hands that had torn gods apart, now worked with surprising gentleness, repairing, rebuilding, creating instead of destroying. It would take time, weeks, maybe months, but he had time. He always had time. And while he worked, he thought about what the blood god had said, about rage and purpose and endless war, about whether any of it mattered. He didn't have answers, wasn't sure he ever would, but he had a choice. Keep walking, keep existing, keep refusing to be what they wanted him to be. It wasn't much of a purpose, but it was his. And that, for now, was enough. The ghost of war walks the stars now, unchained, unbowed, unclaimed. The Imperium searches for him. Chaos hunts him. The Inquisition debates what he represents. But he walks on, through worlds and wars, through the endless dark between stars. Some say he's a myth, a legend invented by desperate people looking for hope. Some say he's a threat, a weapon waiting to go off, a monster wearing the shape of a man. Some say he's a saint, an angel of vengeance sent by the Emperor himself. They're all wrong, and they're all right. He is Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, the god-killer, the breaker of chains. And in this galaxy, this vast, cruel, unforgiving galaxy, he will walk until he finds what he's looking for, or until the walking finally ends, whichever comes first.